Hey, everybody, it's Scott Steen with winnersandwhiners.com. We are coming to you. It is draft week, everybody, and it's also 420. So, smoke them if you got them. If there's ever an opportunity, if there's ever a 420 where everybody should be taking advantage of that, it is today, 420. And, of course, the month is 420. And we're joined by a couple of our all-stars here today. As always, my sidekick, my partner in crime. He is the one, the only. He is Scott Reichel up there in Long Island, New York. We're about to Scott, what are we, midway through the eating challenge now?
Yes, you are at the semifinals.
All right. I'm pretty excited. It's down to Joey Chestnut. Can you name any other of the three contestants?
Gideon OG.
That's not even a name. That's not a thing, Scott.
I believe that is a name, but, that is what it is. I'm surprised Stoney lost. That's all I'm going to say.
Matt Stoney, a Badlands Booker. I know him. Is he still in?
Well, Stoney lost, so he's not in it anymore.
Okay.
You got Darren. I forgot what his last name was, but his first name is Darren.
We apologize to all of our viewers for not keeping our finger on.
My apologies to the Major League Eating community. I'm sorry.
The MLE, man. It's weird times indeed. And we're going to bring on, man, I like this guy a lot. I used to have him on the podcast a lot. We always had a blast. He is the editor-in-chief over there at Winners and Whiners. He's usually a little too busy for us, but times are different, a little slow. We get to sneak him in and talk to him about his thoughts on the NFL draft. We're going to talk about the first round today. He is Ben the Pen. He is the one, the only Ben Hayes. Ben, how are you today, sir?
I'm okay, Scott. Good to be here. Finally, have something to do today.
Yeah,
wait and edit.
This is excellent. This is going to be a big deal. This is going to be probably the most bet on event of the last month. You guys think that's going to be the case?
It should be. I mean, I can't attest to Belarusian soccer and Russian ping pong, but, I feel like compared to most years, I think this will probably be the biggest hold or that sports books have on draft props, probably ever.
And they've kind of gone from one end of the spectrum to the other. They were going to have this big, extravagant Las Vegas shindig where they send the guys on a boat across the pond there at the Bellagio, and instead it's going to be Roger Goodell's basement. So it's going to be quite a shock. Hey, Ben, just from a technical standpoint, before we start going, do you think they're going to be able to wheel and deal and have the lines of communication open as much as they normally would with everybody kind of sequestered at their own place when they don't have any central location to kind of use as a clearinghouse for information? Is that going to inhibit or change the draft in any way in your eyes?
I think to a certain extent, but for the most part, I think there's going to be trades. That's how they communicated before, through texting, through phone calls. They're not going to Zoom, I don't think, with the other GMs, but I think we'll see a lot of trades. The question is how, these mock drafts that we're putting out, we don't know which player, who are they, who the teams are looking at. Usually they bring in, 10, 15 guys, and they have to Zoom them, and the press really doesn't know who the teams are looking at. I mean, the teams are happy about that, but creating these drafts are very difficult. These mock drafts.
That's a great point. It's been a tougher year than usual because everybody is really able to hide all that information. You don't have the guys coming through the airport and being spotted and who they're working out and everything. Yeah, you're absolutely right. So
I think you got to go by needs, and most teams do pick by needs, but they don't want to reach, which we'll probably see a lot of reaches in the first round. But it'll be very interesting, this draft.
Yeah, and a lot of teams that didn't have needs before free agency, they've lost free agents, and all of a sudden they have a need at a position that might have been previously strong. So we're going to take a look at all that. We'll start off with the number one pick in the draft. This should be as close to a layup as you're going to get here. We've got the Bengals picking number one. They had no indication they're going to trade or anything like that. They've got their guy. They're ready to rock and roll. Scott, tell us about the number one pick in the draft.
With the first pick in the draft, the Cincinnati Bengals select Joe Burrow, quarterback out of LSU. I think it's a no-brainer. There were some rumors that the Dolphins might be shipping off a king's ransom for the first pick. That rumor was around for maybe about 2 hours before it got completely shut down. Cincinnati knows who they want. They should know who they want. He basically was a local kid for the first couple of years in college before he transferred to LSU. Overall, I think he's the best quarterback in the draft by a decent margin. Cincinnati knows that they're going to need a franchise guy who could potentially turn their luck around. And after having arguably the greatest season by any quarterback in the history of college football, I think Joe Burrow is the obvious pick.
And do they do anything? What do they end up doing with Andy Dalton, Ben? What do you think?
I was going to ask about that. Yeah, obviously they're going to release him. He's still going to, I think, start in the NFL for some teams. Certainly didn't have a good year last year, but he's still got something left. He's still fairly athletic. I think he's a little bit like a Ryan Fitzpatrick, a little bit better. Yeah, some team maybe that's not, looking to compete, maybe take a shot on him, or maybe the Chargers. We assume they're going to take the quarterback if they don't think Tyrod Taylor's a small guy and he's probably pretty injury prone. But there's still a few spots open for Andy Dalton. I think he's still got a little bit left to play, a little bit left in the tank at this point.
Yeah, and that's not a great quarterback lineup there at Cincinnati. They really don't have they have Ryan Finley as a backup. They have a kid named Jacob Delagala from Central Connecticut State as their third stringer. Scott, any chance they try to bring in a veteran to at least back up Joe Burrow?
For me, I don't think so. I originally thought that the Bengals would end up trading Dalton during the offseason, but I realized with the shortened offseason and the lack of training camp and the lack of preparation, it actually wouldn't surprise me to see Cincinnati maybe wait on starting Burrow. You already have Dalton under contract. Until you feel comfortable as a coaching staff that Burrow knows the playbook as well as he should, and he gains some type of organization or just some type of comfortability with the rest of the team, it wouldn't surprise me to see them throw Andy Dalton out as a sacrificial lamb until they end up deciding that Burrow's ready to start. The worst thing you can do, Cincinnati was the worst team in the league last year. That's why they're number one overall. I think we're all in agreement that just because they got Burrow isn't going to change the fact that they're probably not going to make the playoffs this year either. So is it really worth throwing Burrow in with I'd say an average at best offensive line without really knowing any of his receivers, without really knowing much of the playbook, instead of just throwing Dalton out for another year and then just getting rid of him during the offseason?
Right, and you and I have talked a little bit about how the landscape has changed with the COVID-19. It inhibits the ability for OTAs, and it inhibits the ability to get a head start on that playbook. Ben, what do you think the odds are? You like that possibility that Andy Dalton kind of turns into Alex Smith for a year?
Nah, they'll get the playbook. They just won't be able to work out. Well, they might be able to work out with a receiver or two, but no, I think Dalton's gone. I think they go with Burrow. Maybe they pick up like I said, a Fitzpatrick type to mentor him somewhat. But yeah, I think Dalton's done. And Burrow's the number one pick for a reason. He's gonna be starting from day one, I think, and that's the way guys are nowadays. You don't get to sit out a year like back in the day. Burrow's good. I mean, I'm not 100% sold on Burrow being a great NFL quarterback, come up with a great college junior season or senior season, whatever it was. But I always wonder, is he better than a healthy Tua Tagovailoa? Is he better than a Trevor Lawrence in a year or two? I don't think he has the same upside, but he's certainly worth the number one pick at this point.
Well, there's our first hot take of the day, everybody. Very nice. That's so you're saying there's a possibility that Joe Burrow, maybe not a bust, but maybe doesn't turn into an elite NFL quarterback.
Yeah, I think he'll be okay, but he's going into a tough situation. Yes, AJ Green is back, but he hasn't played in like two or 3 years.
Right.
The receivers are adequate. The offensive line's always a question mark. It's not the greatest of situations, but that's why they had the number one pick. So.
Right. Yeah, that's a great point. All right.
LSU was a great system, great quarterback coach. The system was the guy was accurate. I'm not going to take that away from him.
Well, one thing to touch on actually with Dalton, even though I'm starting to think Cincinnati might keep him, there is a chance that they treat him like the Eagles treated Sam Bradford, where they drafted somebody early on, then one team suffers a crucial injury to a quarterback spot, then they drastically overpay compensate for trading for a quarterback. I believe Sam Bradford went for 2 first-round picks, I think, when he went to Minnesota. They literally just drafted Carson Wentz and they ended up shipping Sam Bradford because Bridgewater got injured. There's a possibility that one team has a serious injury to the starting quarterback, and then the Bengals just start shopping Dalton around because they know that somebody's going to desperately try to acquire him. So I think that they might be more likely to hold on to Dalton, but I wouldn't be surprised to see him get traded, as Ben alluded to earlier.
All right, very good. All right, so let's take a look at the second pick in the draft. We'll try to rip through these a little bit faster. We knew we were going to spend some time there on the number one pick. Ben, it's the Redskins. Now we got a new coach, Riverboat Ron, has moved up from Carolina all the way to DC. And a couple of things we talked a little bit about off air. He is a defensive guy. Is this a no-brainer here? Chase Young, does Ron Rivera believe in Dwayne Haskins, Ben? Is he the quarterback of the future there in DC?
Well, if he believed in him, he wouldn't have brought in Kyle Allen. But I just don't see the Redskins screwing this up. They've screwed a lot of things up, but I think they got to go with Chase Young. Played locally at the Matha High School. Another potential Khalil Mack or Myles Garrett. He's just a no-brainer at number two. Yeah, I mean, there's Tua. There's other possibilities. They do need a quarterback, or they're going to go with two young guys now. Haskins and Kyle Allen will go after it. I think they'll draft a quarterback maybe later in the draft, but Riverboat Ron, I think, deals with defense, and that's his forte. He brought in his old guy, Kyle Allen. He's brought in a couple other Carolina Panthers. So I just think I think this is going to be Rivera's pick, not Dan Snyder, who did pick Dwight Haskins last year.
Scott, when all is said and done, is Chase Young the second best player in this draft?
I actually think he is the second best player in this draft, but it might surprise you who I have at number one. We'll get to him in a little bit.
All right, good enough.
I think I know. Yeah, I mean, I don't think Burrow is the best player in the draft, but I understand why it's going number one. But yeah, I think I know who Scott would take as the top pick. I mean, the top overall player.
A little bit of a tease there. Excellent. Scott, let's take a look at the Lions, man. This is another team that is a perennial bad team. They got rid of their arguably one of their best players in Darius Slay. They did pick up Marcus Trufant at the cornerback, but they've still got some needs, man. They've got a lot of holes to fill. Are the Lions going to hang on to this pick and pick up someone that they need, or are they going to trade down and maybe pick up some extra picks?
Well, for me, I think they are going to hold on to it. Anybody can claim that they're shopping around picks. There's a difference between claiming you're shopping just so you can get a decent offer that you can't refuse and actually pulling the trigger on it. I don't really think the Lions are going to trade the pick. For me, the tease is over. My favorite prospect in the draft is Jeff Okudah. I think he is a can't-miss prospect, and I think he will be a phenomenal corner in the NFL. Trading Slay makes perfect sense on why you would take Okudah. Could they have gotten more from Slay? Probably, just based on trade value. But overall, now they have a glaring hole at the number one corner spot. Okudah is just so good. I mean, there's no other way to put it. He's the best corner prospect I've seen since Patrick Peterson, and that's really saying a lot. I think he's a can't-miss prospect, and he's my favorite on the board in the overall class. I think Young has more upside, but I think that Okudah is the safer pick. So for me, I got Okudah number one on my big board.
Ben, what do you got there at number 3 for the Lions?
Yeah, I have Okudah as well. So that surprised me that Scott thought Okudah was the best overall. I would have gone with Isaiah Simmons, who's unbelievable. But Okudah is a very good pick. Matt Patricia, of course, a defensive coach as well. Only other pick, I think, maybe the big kid from Auburn, Derek Brown, defensive lineman, is a possibility there. But they should really go with Okudah.
All right, Scott, and that's kind of a nice segue into the number 4 spot that is held by the Giants. Giants, they need a ton. They basically got a good quarterback, good running back. They got one good offensive guard. They need everything else, man, and they really need an offensive tackle. Solder's coming back. He looked bad. He's getting old. But, man, is there any way they can pass? And this is also the player I think is the best in the draft. Can they pass on Isaiah Simmons, or do the Giants take him in this spot?
Well, I mean, for me, personally, on my mock draft, I had Simmons penciled in about a week ago. There has been a decent amount of steam lately that the Giants have been attached to Jedrick Wills, offensive lineman out of Alabama. And if you've looked at the betting markets, those lines have plummeted. Wills was around plus 200 or so, and now is starting to go down to roughly plus 120. There's been a lot of line movement on the Giants taking Wills, so I'm starting to think that they are going to be relatively likely to take Wills. But for me, I actually have a little bit of a sprinkle preview for tomorrow when we're going over some draft props. I got a sprinkle on the Giants taking Simmons, and I believe I got that at plus 275. So
I think it's a good place. Ben, what do you think?
I have Simmons going there, but wouldn't it make more sense for them to trade down where they can get a, Wills or another really good offensive tackle? Because everybody's going to want Simmons at 4 if he's still there. I could see a trade there, but I do have Simmons going to the Giants. I just think he's just too good to pass up.
I do too as well. All right, so Ben, let's talk about the next pick in the draft. This is where it's likely to get fun. The Miami Dolphins. You're talking about the first team that really has a need at quarterback. Well, other than the Bengals, of course. They need help on the offensive line. They need help. Obviously, Fitzmagic is not going to be the long-term answer. You've still got Tua on the board, but you've also got a guy whose stock has been rising out there in Oregon, Justin Herbert. Who do you like in this spot for the Dolphins, Ben?
I'm still going to go with Tua with that pick. I know there's been a lot of talk about he's going to go 10, he's going to go 15. What about the medicals? You're taking a chance on any quarterback. I think Tua is the best quarterback when healthy. He doesn't have the biggest arm, but he's 6'1", about 217. He's sturdy. The injuries are a worry. But if you're in Miami, where else? I think Herbert's just going to take a year or two. He's got the size, but I see Herbert slipping. I think Tua goes there. Again, a possible trade as well. Miami's got a bunch of picks, and I think you got to look for the franchise quarterback, and that's Tua. Again, question marks about his health, but I think you got to go with Tua, not Josh Rosen, not Ryan Fitzpatrick. That's for sure.
Scott, you on board with that?
Yeah, I got Tua also going at 5 to the Dolphins. I actually have money, another prop on Tua over 3.5, so fourth or later. I got that about a month ago at plus 118, and now it's roughly 4.5, 5.5. So there's been a lot of rumors about Tua falling in the draft. For me, kind of everything that Ben just said. Even though Tua has some serious injury risk, I think he's significantly better than the number 3 quarterback who's going to be taken. I think you basically have Burrow and Tua right around neck and neck, and then you have a massive drop-off. It basically falls off a cliff. If you're going to take a quarterback and you believe that he could be the future, Tua, when healthy, is definitely bare minimum a starting quarterback in the NFL. So I think you take him.
All right, so let's kind of talk about that because that's going to segue into our next team on the board, and that's the there it is. This is the Los Angeles Chargers. Los Angeles Chargers, they got rid of old Mother Hubbard there in Phillip Rivers and his 19 children. They decided to so far on the roster, they've got Tyrod Taylor and Easton Stick out there at North Dakota State. Obviously, they need a quarterback. Do they take who's ever left? If the Dolphins would happen to go with Herbert, do they take Tua, or do they take Herbert if the Dolphins go with Tua? Is this an automatic quarterback pick here in this spot for the Chargers?
Well, for me, I personally have them taking Herbert from Oregon. Would I do it? No. I'm a very anti-Herbert just guy. No offense to him personally, and he's actually made me some money with the 40-yard dash times and the Wonderlic test, which he got the highest score on. Shout out to him. But overall, I really just am not impressed by Herbert. He's been a starting quarterback for roughly 4 years, and I feel like he's made no progress to get any better during those 4 years. He's made the same mistakes over and over again during that time frame. And if you just watch some of the film, it's very ugly at times. His decision-making, his footwork, I just don't think he's that good. I'm going to be straightforward. He reminds me of Mitch Trubisky. And that might sound like a massive insult, but if you actually keep in mind the film and some of their strengths and some of their weaknesses, I just don't think he's very good. And I don't think that he's going to be a capable starting quarterback in this league. I think he's going to be a bust if he goes in the top 10, but I think that the Chargers will take him because they feel like they need to start preparing for the future, and Tyrod Taylor is a quick fix.
High praise indeed for Justin Herbert. Ben, are you as anti-Herbert as Scott is? Do you think the Chargers should go quarterback here?
Yeah, I am in agreement with Scott. I think Herbert probably goes to the Chargers there. It's not a bad situation. Tyrod Taylor, as I mentioned, kind of injury prone, but a veteran. He started before, so Herbert doesn't have to walk in and start and hold the clipboard for about a year. He's got to learn how to read defenses. I mean, that's going to be the biggest adjustment playing for Oregon. Mariota didn't work out. I don't think Herbert's going to work out, but the Chargers, what else is there available? They're going to wait for Trevor Lawrence Jordan Love is a risk at that pick, unless they trade down and want to try to get Jordan Love. Well, I do like his potential, but yeah, I think they go with Herbert, but there's a possible trade there as well.
All right, very good. Next on the board is this number 7 pick. That is the Carolina Panthers. They've got a new coach in Matt Rule, most recently of Baylor, an offensive juggernaut down there in the Big 12. Now he's going to be tempted by those 2 receivers that are still on the board at this point. But man, they need some defense. I've got him going with Derek Brown out of Auburn here. Ben, what say you?
Wow, great minds think alike. Yeah, same thing with Derek Brown from Auburn, 6'5", 326, SEC Defensive Player of the Year. I mean, he anchors your defense, anchors your defensive line. Yeah, I think Carolina's been missing defense. They lose Luke Kuechly. Of course, he retires. But I think it starts off with the defensive line, and Derek Brown's as good as anybody in the draft.
Scott, you going to make it 3 for 3?
Great minds think alike. I got Derek Brown.
There you go. All right, Scott, we move on to 8, the Arizona Cardinals. This is a team that is in desperate need of offensive linemen to keep Kyler Murray upright. Who do they got? You basically got 3 choices here. You've got Jedrick Wills out of Alabama. You've got Mekhi Becton out of Louisville. And you've got Tristan Wirfs out of Iowa. You also have Andrew Thomas out of the University of Georgia. Maybe not quite on the level of those other 3. Do the Cards go offensive line here, Scott? And if they do, who do they take?
For me, yes. Well, assuming the Giants end up taking Isaiah Simmons and they don't end up taking Wills, I think Wills is an option. But for me, I got Wirfs going to the Arizona Cardinals here. The thing about Arizona's system with Kingsbury is that they love to spread the ball out. They like a lot of athleticism, and that's just something that they definitely try to get on their offensive line, just for them to be able to get to the second level as quickly as possible. And even though Becton had a phenomenal combine, Wirf's combine for an offensive lineman was absolutely ridiculous. And I think that his athleticism alone makes him a perfect fit for Kingsbury's system. So for me, I got Tristan Wirfs going here at the 8th spot.
All right, Ben, what do you got?
Yeah, I got Jedrick Wills going from Alabama. He doesn't have the prototypical height for a tackle at 6'4", but he has long arms. Playing for Alabama obviously helps. Either way, I mean, they're both good tackles. I think Arizona does go offensive tackle because their line was just atrocious last year, and I think it'll be a smart pick either side. They're both good players.
All right, now Ben, that moves us on to number 9. That's the Cleveland Browns. That is another team that is in desperate need of offensive linemen.
You mean Jaguars?
Jacksonville.
Jaguars over the 9.
I'm sorry, the Jags are in front of the Browns.
Yep.
Sorry, guys. All right, so
there was a trade we didn't know about.
No, yeah, they moved it once, but no, I don't. This is another team that has got a lot of picks. They've got 7 picks in the first few rounds. They lost a couple of mainstays there on the defensive side with Campbell and Darius gone. They also got rid of they need a cornerback. What do the Jags do here, Ben?
Yeah, I think they go defense. Javon Kinlaw from South Carolina, another big defensive tackle. He's got some pass rush ability as well, like 6'3", 324. They need a lot, Jacksonville. And I don't think you can go wrong with Kinlaw. He's a good player.
Okay, Scott, you on board with that?
I definitely think the pick makes sense, especially after trading Calais Campbell during the offseason. For me, I actually got them going offensive line. I got them taking Wills from Alabama there. It's really tough to pick Jacksonville. Jacksonville's one of those teams where you look at their depth chart and think, what don't they need?
Right.
It's really bad. I think they might be the worst team in the league when by record at the end of this upcoming season. They're definitely going to be in competition for the first pick in the upcoming draft. I think they're going to go offensive lineman because it depends if they buy into Minshew or not. He showed signs of potentially being a franchise guy. And I think if you're going to try to help a younger quarterback progress, you got to keep him alive. And I think that offensive line is definitely an area that needs some addressing. So for me, I think that Kinlaw makes a lot of sense, but I got them taking Wills, offensive lineman from Alabama.
All right, very good, Scott. And then that moves us to the number 10 pick, and that is the Cleveland Browns, another team in desperate need of offensive linemen. Do they take do they pick off who's ever left there for the offensive line?
Well, it's actually funny you mention that because I actually switched up my mock draft yesterday. I originally had the Browns taking Becton out of Louisville, but then rumors came around that he potentially failed the drug test, and I actually moved him down on my board. I got them taking Andrew Thomas now. out of Georgia.
Yeah, it's really weird. He didn't fail the drug test, but his drug test was flagged. So apparently there was something there that they didn't like. Ben, does that scare you off of Becton? He's got to go 90 days clean, and then it's pretty much expunged from his record. Does that scare you off of? Does it scare you off of Becton onto the cat from Campbell from Georgia, or do they go a different direction? What do you think?
Yeah, I haven't taken worse from Iowa, but yeah, Becton I think could slide a little bit. What scares me more is his weight. You know, he's about 370, so at 6'7", 6'8". But I think he goes late. Well, we also have an issue with another linebacker, edge rusher later in the draft we can talk about as well. It has a drug red flag on his drug test. So, but yeah, I go with Wirfs from Iowa. Cleveland definitely needs an offensive lineman.
All right.
And that's I think where they'll go. They need some defensive help as well.
Well, and speaking of a team that needs help in a lot of different positions, how about the Jets Jets, Ben? They've cornerback, offensive tackle, offensive guard, wide receiver, edge rusher. Who's the best player available that fits the Jets' needs here? By the way, I've got it to C.J. Henderson from Florida in this pick. Ben, what say you?
Yeah, well, they lost Robbie Anderson, of course, their best wide receiver. I'm going with CeeDee Lamb. I like Judy better, but I think Lamb is now the toast of the town as far as the receivers go. They couldn't really lose with either one. But, yeah, I'm going with CeeDee Lamb for the Jets, desperate for a wide receiver.
Scott, what do you say, buddy?
Well, there have been some rumors about the Jets being interested in offensive linemen, but they brought in 4 separate offensive linemen during the offseason. So I think they're more likely to go after a receiver since they did pretty much nothing. They did get Brandon Perryman to potentially replace Robbie Anderson, but at the end of the day, I think they're going to take Judy. I think Judy's the best receiver in the class. I know that CeeDee Lamb, just based on height and ability, is definitely loved by some NFL scouts. I think Judy's the guy. So for me, I'm going to assume the Jets take Judy.
All right, very good. Scott, did the Raiders just didn't take the other one as far as the wide receiver goes? Is this close to a slam dunk in the middle of this round as we're going to get Raiders take a speedy receiver?
It's actually funny you mentioned that because I actually might surprise you with who I'm taking. I do not have the Raiders taking CeeDee Lamb. I have the Raiders taking Henry Ruggs. And that's for every reason you just mentioned. The Raiders historically always try to draft the fastest and the most athletic receiver in the draft. Does it always work out? No. Shout out to Darius Hayward-Bay. But overall, I think that Ruggs has the speed and the ability to be a potential game changer. And I think that the Raiders are going to look at the tape, look at the 40 time, look at the vertical, and they're just going to be too attracted by it. So for me, I got them taking Ruggs. Should they take Ruggs? Probably not, but it's the Raiders. And trying to predict what they are going to do is the biggest waste of time going into the draft every year. But I got them taking Ruggs.
Ben, that's a
yeah.
He's kind of set you up there. You feeling the same way?
Yeah, it's a typical Raiders pick, taking the fastest guy on the board. Judy makes more sense, but like I have Judy going a little bit later. But Ruggs, has more upside, I think, than most receivers in this draft. But he's raw, and it'll take him some time. But it's typical Raiders. If Al Davis was alive, he'd definitely take Henry Ruggs from Alabama.
All right, very good. Very, very good indeed. Now, and then the 13th pick, they're right across the bay. Of course, the Raiders in Vegas, not across the bay anymore, but the 49ers pick that they picked up from the Colts for Buckner. They've got a few needs there. They did lose Emmanuel Sanders. I've got them going receiver here, potentially making it 3 receivers in a row. Ben, how you feeling about the 49ers?
Yeah, same here. I have him going with Judy. I think he's the best receiver in the draft in terms of route running, smooth, polished guy. Not the fastest, but still ran under 4.5. I think it was a 4.45. Good pick for the Niners. They need a little bit more speed to go ahead with, complement Deebo Samuel. And as you mentioned, they lost Emmanuel Sanders. So a solid pick for San Francisco. I think they'll address the defensive tackle spot at some point later on.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, that's a nice pick up there for trading DeForest Buckner. Scott, what do you say? Do they try to replace Buckner this early, or are they going to go receiver?
Yeah, I'm actually going contrarian a little bit here. I think the 49ers definitely need a wide receiver, but everyone also forgets that this is such a deep receiver class that I think you could afford to potentially wait on taking a receiver until later on. Potentially, if they end up trading down later on, they can get a KJ Hamler, someone like that, maybe a Pittman out of USC, something like that. But for me, the 49ers, I think they're going to take Kinlaw out of South Carolina. They definitely need a defensive tackle after letting Buckner go. Are they most likely going to take a receiver? Probably. But John Lynch, if everybody doesn't remember this, he's a defensive guy, and it wouldn't surprise me to see him go after probably the best defensive player left on the board, just based on positions of need. So for that reason, Kinlaw, 6'5", 324, very good combine, very good athleticism. I think he would be a very nice plug-and-play replacement for Buckner. So for me, I'm going to go a little bit different. I know a lot of people have receiver. I think they're going to take Kinlaw out of South Carolina.
All right. Moving on to number 14, that is the Bucs. The Bucs been made the big splash in the offseason so far as they put together a deal for TB12 Tom Brady, taking his talents to Florida and looking to lace them up for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Scott, they need some help keeping Brady upright. Do the Buccaneers look offensive line in this spot?
Yes. For me, this is where Becton's slide officially stops. He was originally going to go top 10 for me, but after the whole flagging with the drug test incident, I think he's going to slide to 14 here for Tampa Bay. I know that some of us have had disagreements on which offensive lineman would go first or second. It really doesn't matter because you can kind of make a case for all of them. Becton's the last, I'd say, elite one that I have left on my board compared to the rest. So for me, process of elimination, I got them taking Becton here.
All right, Ben, how are you feeling about the Bucs? What are they going to do to keep Tom upright?
Yeah, I do have offensive line, but I'm going with Andrew Thomas from Georgia. Smart guy, long, 6'5", 315. Maybe a little more athletic than Becton. Becton is really good for his size athletically. But yeah, I'm going to go with a safer pick, I think, in Andrew Thomas.
Okay, very good. 15 is the Broncos. Broncos been fairly busy in the offseason. They've added a nice offensive lineman in Glasgow. They got, of course, picked up Melvin Gordon. Boosted the defense a little bit, picked up A.J. Bouye and Jarrell Casey from Tennessee. This is an offensive team that has struggled. They've got Drew Lock at the helm now. They're pretty much going to be his team. But this is an offense that has finished 27th, 24th, and 28th over the last 3 seasons. Ben, what do they do to help out here in Denver?
Yeah, I think they'll go as far as Drew Lock can take them. So I think defensively, losing Chris Harris, a cornerback, I think they go with C.J. Henderson from Florida. Maybe he goes before, but I like him going there at 15. He's the second best corner in the draft after Okudah. I'm taking Henderson.
Scott, what do you say? John Elway going to go defense in the first round?
For me, no. I personally think they're going to go receiver here. Now, this is kind of surprising. I still have CeeDee Lamb available, which definitely doesn't seem likely, but I have it. I don't think it's going to happen, but just based on how my mock draft worked out, I think they're going to go receiver, whether it's Ruggs, whether it's CeeDee Lamb. I think they're going to go receiver here. Even though they lost Chris Harris, they did pick up A.J. Bouye from Jacksonville, which does a pretty good job of replacing that Harris's absence. They need more weapons. I know Sutton turned into a very solid receiver as he kind of broke onto the scene as a potential, I don't want to say elite receiver, but he's borderline in that area. I think they'll try to find a wide receiver, too, to complement him nicely, help Lock develop. So for me, I got them taking CeeDee Lamb, but I think without a doubt they're probably going to take a receiver.
All right. Scott, moving on to 16 here, reaching the halfway point of our first round look. Talking about the Atlanta Falcons, this team needs defense, and if you look closer, they need a little more defense. So how do they go here? Who do you have on the board still to go to Atlanta?
I got them taking Chiazon out of LSU. I think it makes perfect sense. They lost Vic Beasley. They need another pass-rushing linebacker. And you can make an argument that out of all the people left on the board, Chiazon's the best pass rusher. So for me, I got them taking Chiazon out of LSU.
All right. Now, I still had Kinlaw on the board at this point from South Carolina. I had him going to the Falcons. Ben, what do you say? What are the Falcons going to do to stiffen that defense down there? Or are they going another way?
I'm going offense. I think it'll be maybe the most shocking pick thus far. DeAndre Swift, the running back from Georgia, the best back, I think. They certainly have a need at running back, and maybe they feel he's too good to pass up. I think they go with Swift.
So you're not high on Gurley then?
No.
Yeah,
no, not right.
Wow, that is now that's bold right there, especially after trading for Todd Gurley. They would bring in another running back in the first round pick. That's why we bring him on, everybody. Ben Hayes and his bold predictions there for the NFL draft. Very, very good.
Anytime you have those knee issues, and it just looks like he doesn't look like he's explosive anymore. Maybe he's still young enough. Maybe he still recaptures that, but Swift is young and more explosive at this point. So
yeah, I agree with you. I think Gurley is done. I thought that was a
traded for him.
Yeah, I don't think you're
most running backs don't get it back, unless you're Adrian Peterson, who's a freak.
Right. Absolutely true. Ben, moving on to 17 down there in Big D, Dallas Cowboys. Now they've got a couple of challenges. They've got a couple of immediate needs to plug, but they've also got to kind of build for the future. And they brought in, as far as that defensive line go, they've got Randy Gregory and Aldon Smith coming off suspensions. Man, are you believing in those guys, or are you gonna have to go defensive end here? What do you do down there if you're Dallas, Ben?
Yeah, I go with Chason from LSU. I mean, Aldon Smith, they're just taking a chance on him. Randy Gregory, of course, had some issues in the past. Chason's a safe pick from LSU. Good player, good edge rusher. They could go corner as well, but I think they're going to go defense. Definitely start with Chason if he can.
And I've got him at AJ. I've got AJ Terrell from Clemson going in this spot at the cornerback to Dallas. Scott, what do you say? You can agree with either one of us?
I still have Henderson on the board, so I think that they'll take Henderson out of Florida. For me, even though Aldon Smith and Randy Gregory definitely shouldn't be trusted at this point, I actually do like the Smith signing from a risk-reward perspective. I think it does make sense, considering how little they're actually risking for a potentially – I don't think Smith's going to be the same guy that he once was. I think he can still be a decent defensive lineman. But at the end of the day, you lose Byron Jones, your secondary is a joke. I think you pretty much have to take a corner here. And I think that either or, it's going to be Henderson or even McKinney. But I still have Henderson on my board, so I'll go with Henderson.
Yeah, and I know, Aldon Smith, people forget that he's actually fairly old. And I'll tell you how I know this. He went to the same high school that my son went to. And they never played together. And my son is now has been graduated from college for a year. So that's going to put Aldon Smith somewhere in the 27, 28.
I think he's 30. Is he 30? Maybe he's 27.
What a waste. What a waste of talent. The guy that, can't stay sober or can't keep from taking a gun through the airport. Good Lord. Ben, who do you have the Cowboys taking in this spot?
I already said that. Chason.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Chason. Sorry, guys. All right, let's move on to the 18th pick, the Dolphins' second pick. They brought this one over for the trading for Minkah Fitzpatrick, their midseason trade that really helped out the Steelers' defense, put them on the radar screen and kept them in the playoff hunt to the very end. And now it's time to pay the piper with that 18th pick. This team still needs offensive linemen. Most of the good ones are off the board. They're at least the top four, according to all of us. Ben, what do you got left here down there in Miami?
I'm going with offensive line help. I do think Becton will be there, the guy from Louisville, at the spot to protect Tua. I assume will be taken with the fifth pick. So, yeah, I definitely think the best offensive tackle available. And on my mock, I do have Becton going there.
Okay. All right. Very good. Scott, what about you?
I got Becton off the board already, so I think they're going to go defense. Is it possible they reach for another offensive lineman? It's definitely possible, but Miami also has the 26th pick, so I think if they wanted to go for an offensive lineman like an Austin Jackson type, they could wait for 26. For me, I got them actually fully replacing Fitzpatrick with that pick, and I got them taking Xavier McKinney, safety out of Alabama. The secondary got a lot better during the offseason with the acquisition of Byron Jones. Jones and Howard, arguably the best, if not one of the best tandems at the cornerback spot. Their safeties still leave a lot to be desired, and I think bringing in an athletic McKinney there definitely helps pretty much complete their secondary. So I think McKinney's the move.
Okay, very nice. Number 19, we've got the Las Vegas Raiders. This is the gift that keeps on giving there for Khalil Mack. They picked up the Bears' number 1 pick in 19. Also picked up the Bears' number 1 pick in 2020. And they've done some things in the offseason, but they still have a glaring need at linebacker here. Scott, do they end up going linebacker with this pick?
Yes, I got them taking Kenneth Murray out of Oklahoma. I just think he's extremely athletic. You can put him in a bunch of different packages. And the Raiders, as we said before, love the athletic people on any side of the ball. And I think Murray's a phenomenal athlete, so I think he'll be the pick.
Ben, you on board with Kenneth Murray as well?
No, I have them taking McKinney. I love McKinney. Any corner or safety, anybody that has that kind of versatility that can play both spots. The Raiders suck at corner and safety, so maybe he can play both at the same time. But no, I like McKinney there. I don't know if he runs a 4.2 40, but I know the Raiders, I think, go with the corner/safety help.
All right, and moving on to pick number 20, that is the Jacksonville Jags. Once again, this is the Rams pick that they picked up for Jalen Ramsey. We talked about the Jags. They have a lot of needs to address. How do you feel in here, Ben? What direction do they go?
Yeah, I think they go with the offensive tackle, Josh Jones from Houston. It's a pretty good draft for offensive tackles, and he's got some work to do, but he does need to get stronger at 6'6", 310. But I think Jags go with the offensive tackle.
All right.
Houston.
Go ahead, Bo.
No, I'm sorry. He's from Houston, the college.
Okay. Number 21, Fly Eagles Fly, baby. They were close last season. In fact, they might have been able to earn themselves a trip to Green Bay.
Did we get Scott's 20th pick?
What's that?
Did we get Scott's 20th pick?
Did you?
I can give it out, or we can just.
Yeah, give me your Jags, Scott. Sorry, guys. Yeah.
So Ben and I flip-flopped. I got the Jaguars taking offensive lineman with their first pick in the first round. You have them taking it with their second pick. I got them going defensive line with the 20th pick, since I have them taking Wills and with their first pick in the first round. I got them taking Gross Matos out of Penn State, and they need defensive line help. I think he's a good athlete. Even though they need help at virtually every position, I think Matos has a lot of upside from an athleticism perspective. He can't really play defensive tackle, so he's not going to be replacing Campbell, but they need someone to get after the passer. So for me, I got them taking Gross Matos out of Penn State.
All right. Very nice. Now let's talk about those Eagles, the 21st pick. They lost Malcolm Jenkins. They lost Aguilar. They did have a little defensive backfield help, as they did bring in Darius Slay and Roby Coleman from the Rams. Scott, a couple of glaring needs here for the Eagles. How do they go?
Wide receiver. I don't know how they're supposed to get by without Nelson Aguilar. I mean, can you believe? I don't know. I mean, it's amazing. No, in reality, though, I got them taking Justin Jefferson. He's the best receiver on the board. Makes perfect sense. The only question if the Eagles actually pull the trigger on a wide receiver instead of trying to focus on some other need. But wide receiver is definitely their most pressing concern, and I think Jefferson's the easy call. All
right, very good. And Ben, you feel the same way? You're going to make it 3 for 3 on Justin Jefferson?
Jefferson.
Okay. Wow, there you go. That's been our first agreement here in a while since the early in this round. I also have Justin Jefferson, wide receiver, LSU, going to the Eagles here in this spot. Ben, number 22, pick they were able to acquire from the Buffalo Bills in a little bit of fleecing, as the Vikings sent Stephon Diggs in a 7th round pick to the Buffalo Bills for their 1st round pick, a 5th, a 6th, and a 4th round pick in 2021. Ben, side note, how do you feel about that trade? Did the Bills give up too much for Stephon Diggs? Kind of a problem child there in Minneapolis.
Yeah, I mean, I like Stephon Diggs, but that's a little too much for a guy who can be kind of a diva, talented. Is he a true number one? I mean, Buffalo he will be. He wasn't really at Minnesota, depending on Thielen's production. But, Minnesota now needs a receiver. They also need a cornerback. They lost Xavier Rhodes, and the other corners didn't play all that well last year. I haven't taken a corner. I'm going with Christian Fulton from LSU, 6 feet, 197 pounds, and another solid corner, solid addition for the Vikes.
And, Scott, how do you have the Vikings going here? Who's going to be wearing the purple in 2020?
I got them going corner. Quick question, though, for Ben. Do you still have Terrell on your board or no?
I do not have him on my – no, I don't go until the 2nd round.
Really? Okay, okay, because that caught me off guard there. I got them taking Terrell. I think he's the best corner left on the board. I think they're going to go there. It's a good thing I asked, because I'm just curious. Why are you not exactly that high on Terrell?
I just think Fulton's just a tad better fundamentally. Fulton is, playing for a really good defense at Clemson, but so for some reason, a lot of people seem to think, and it's not even me necessarily, it's what a lot of teams I think will go with. I think he is at least a late 1st rounder, but people seem to think he's going to go early 2nd round. So That's sort of what my gatherings are. It's not just my feelings about who's better. It's just who do I think is going to pick them. I don't see him going until the early second round.
That's fair.
All right.
I think the Vikings are going to pull the trigger on him personally. Well, would you have any thoughts on that, Scott?
I still had Chasen on my board here. I had him going D into this spot. So I'm not. My board's a little bit different there in this spot than you guys. So
well, they did lose Everson Griffin, so they definitely do need some help in the defensive line.
Right. Well. Yeah. That's. I think they're definitely going to go defense here. I think we can all agree with that. Scott, this is the one that I wanted to talk about. This is going to be one of the more interesting, one of the more watched picks of the first round is the Patriots at 23. They've got some issues on the edge. They've got some issues at wide receiver, but they have one rather large hole to fill. Do they try to fill it here, Scott? Is Jordan Love the man?
Well, for me, I actually have the Patriots taking Jordan Love. It might come as a bit of a shock here. I think that it would not surprise me at all if one team trades up to take Love at some point during the course of the first round. I think if you're going to see a trade up, it most likely will be for Love because of the upside potential there. New England as a whole, Stidham's clearly not going to be the guy. If you've seen him play, he's just not the answer. Could they go after a quarterback in free agency in the next couple of years potentially? But Love has the upside to potentially be a superstar. Am I that high on him personally? No. But I think if you did want one coach to mentor and shape a quarterback, it's probably going to be Belichick. And I think that Jordan Love, with the potential aspect, is too good to pass up here for New England. So for me, I might surprise some people, but I got them taking Jordan Love.
What about you, Ben? You have a little love for Love here in this spot?
I think my original mock draft had Love going there, but then I changed it to Gross Matos because I think Bill may be smoke screening about he loves Jarrett Stidham, but you want two young quarterbacks. I mean, I assume they're going to go after a Dalton or Cam Newton, a veteran, just in case Stidham doesn't work out. But yeah, I think Love either gets picked a little bit higher in a deal, but he, if coming off a poor senior season, he's going to drop a little bit. Or actually a junior season, excuse me. But his sophomore season was so good. Your team, your NFL team, you got to wonder. I don't see the Patriots doing that. Maybe they take a quarterback later in the draft. I don't see them taking a shot on Love in the first round.
All right, very good. Moving on to 24, we've got the Saints on the board. A couple of needs there on the defensive side of the ball. Need some linebackers, need a little help in the defensive backfield. I've got Grant Delpit from LSU going in this spot. Safety to the Saints. Ben, what say you?
This is where I'm going to go with Jordan Love. And now he can learn. Well, first of all, a great quarterback coach in Sean Payton, a great quarterback in Drew Brees. Taysom Hill is not the answer. This is where you take a chance on a guy, spend a year learning from a Hall of Famer. And where else are you going to get a quarterback for the future unless you think it's Taysom Hill, which I doubt. Sean Payton thinks maybe you could do certain things with him, but and Taysom Hill is 29, 30. So I think they take a shot on Love here.
Wow, very good. That's an interesting play. I don't hate it, Scott. What do you say here?
I think that Jordan Love definitely makes sense from that spot. I think if New England or somebody doesn't trade up to take him, I think New Orleans makes perfect sense for that spot. For me, even though they need help defensively, I might actually surprise you a little bit. I still have Joshua Jones on my board, and I think the Saints will go after an offensive lineman. They just re-signed Brees for another 2 years. And I think you kind of saw, especially in that playoff game against Minnesota, they really couldn't protect him, and his immobility definitely kind of killed their playoff run. I think they'll try to do whatever they can to keep Brees upright, try to keep him alive for the next 2 years until he can potentially ride off into the sunset. So for me, it might come as a bit of a surprise, but every team always needs offensive line depth. That's something that's underrated in the NFL. And I think Jones definitely is a solid enough prospect to take here with the 24th pick. So for me, I got them taking Joshua Jones, offensive lineman out of Houston.
Is Brees staying for 2 years, or is it just one and then going into the broadcast booth?
Personally, I think it's going to be 2. I think mentally he might be in the broadcast booth after this year, but they just signed him for 2 years. So for me, I think they're going to let him finish out the contract, see what happens, try to give him as much of a chance he has to win another Super Bowl. That he's going to win another one? No. But I do think that he will stick around for 2 years, so I think they'll try to keep him alive.
Okay, very good. Scott, moving on, 25th pick. We got the Minnesota Vikings up on the board. What do you have the Vikings addressing a few of their needs? What do you have them taking right here?
I got them taking a wide receiver. I think they're going to take Denzel Mims out of Baylor. It makes perfect sense to me. We already had them taking a corner. Most of us had a corner or a defense for all three of us with the 22nd pick. They did lose Diggs. At the end of the day, they're going to need a receiver who can take the top off, somebody who has great athleticism, who has the ability to stretch the field. And I think Mims is the best athlete left for all wide receivers. I think in terms of combine numbers and in terms of measurables, he's probably the closest to a DK Metcalf type on the board. Now, of course, nobody's going to be like Metcalf, who's just an athletic specimen that people haven't seen in a long time. But I think based on the athleticism on the board at wide receiver, which is a position of need, I think Mims makes a lot of sense. So for me, I got them taking Denzel Mims out of Baylor.
I've actually got that same pick. Ben, what do you say?
I go defense. I go edge rusher this time with A.J. Espinoza from Iowa. Good size, 6'5", 274, 11 and a half sacks last year. The receiver makes some sense there. I think Mims a little bit high for him, but Espinoza is going to go somewhere in this 25 to 30 range, and I think the Vikings scoop him up.
Okay. Ben, the Dolphins, hey, they got another pick. This time it comes from the Texans and the Tunsil and Stills deal. And I've got a running back here. I think I've got Swift still on the board, running back out of Georgia. And I think you already had Swift coming off the board. So who do you have the Dolphins going for here?
Well, I just said Mims shouldn't go that high. Well, now I have Mims going to that pick to the Dolphins. It's good size, 6'3", 205, good athlete. I think Miami obviously needs a lot on offense and will be a good target for Joe Burrow.
All right.
I'm sorry, for Tua.
For Tua.
Trade.
What a combination that would be if that worked out. Scott, what do you think of Miami? What do they do here?
For me, even though I had them taking Tua and I had them taking McKinney, that pass rush and that defensive line is still very underwhelming. I think they're going to take Epinesa out of Iowa there. We already mentioned the sack numbers. Ben mentioned that before. Overall, Miami's defense, even though their secondary and their linebacking core definitely look a lot better, that defensive line was a mess last year in terms of getting after the quarterback, and I think Epinesa could easily fix that. So for me, I think they're going to go D-line.
All right. Very, very nice. Moving to 27th, coming down the home stretch now, boys. This is the Seahawks pick. Seahawks, Pete Carroll also kind of loves the wheel and deal up there, maybe trade down. Scott, what do you see? You see a trade here, or you see the Seahawks actually using this pick?
I think Seattle can definitely afford to trade down, but I think at the end of the day, they do have a lot of holes that need addressing, and I think they will end up taking somebody here. With Clowney still on free agency, I don't think he's going to come back to Seattle, at least at this point. So for me, I think you have to go defensive line here. The defensive line was already underwhelming with Clowney, and now that Clowney's gone, it's an absolute disaster. So for me, I got them taking Ross Blaylock out of TCU. You could go Zach Bond, but I am a little bit concerned with the diluted test that he had during the combine. So for me, I think they're going to go defensive line, and I think that Blaylock does have some athleticism, and he could fit in some areas. So for me, I think they're going to end up taking Ross Blaylock out of TCU.
All right, very good. Ben, what do the Seahawks do in this spot?
Well, I think they go corner here. Speaking of Stephon Diggs, his younger brother, Trayvon Diggs from Alabama, good size, 6'1", 205. They certainly need to beef up that secondary, and I think that's where they go, unless it's Terrell
there. Okay, all right. Any shot of a trade here for the Seahawks?
Yeah, I think there's a chance they trade out. A lot of teams want to trade up, but I think there's a possibility that Seattle trades down and gets another pick.
All right, and Ben, let's take a look at at your hometown team here in the 28th spot. That is the Baltimore Ravens. Oh, so very close. They've got a few needs over there in Charm City. How do they go here? How do they play this one?
Yeah, I think the Ravens' biggest need is at inside linebacker. You could also say right guard as well, since Marshall Yonder retired. But Kenneth Murray, I have going from Oklahoma, probably the outside of Simmons, the best linebacker in the draft, inside linebacker, 6'2", 240.
So you think he's going to drop that far?
I think inside linebacker is not the most glamorous position, And, these guys don't get a lot of sacks. They're supposed to be able to cover. The Ravens are desperate. Yeah, it could be him. It could be Patrick Queen from LSU is a possibility as well. The Ravens are normally not a need-based team, but with Eric DeCosta, who knows? DeCosta could always make a move, just like Ozzie Newsome used to trade. You never know with them. They've got they have 2 seconds, so they could move up in the draft as well.
I've got him going linebacker here as well, but I've got Simmons and Queen off the board. I've got him at Zach Brown from linebacker out of Wisconsin. Scott, what do you say here with the Ravens?
I got them taking Patrick Quinn here at the linebacker spot. For me, I love Quinn. I think he's a very good player. I think he's got explosiveness. I think he's got great instincts. I think he'd be a perfect plug-and-play player for Baltimore to help out with the middle of that defense. I think he also has some leadership qualities that I think would help out with the defensive end over the course of his career. I think Quinn's a perfect fit here. So for me, I got them taking Patrick Quinn.
Okay. And 29 is the Tennessee Titans. They did make the AFC Championship game. They need a quarterback, need an edge rusher. They also lost their longtime offensive tackle there, and Jack Conklin couldn't really afford him coming into his second contract. They let him walk. Scott, did they address the offensive tackle situation, or do they go defense here?
For me, I think they're going to go defense. Even though they need a tackle, Austin Jackson is a bit of a project, according to most scouts. So I think that the Titans are looking for more of a plug-and-play starter as opposed to somebody who might be good a couple of years from now on the offensive line spot. For that reason, you said edge rusher. I think Zach Baun, even though he could easily fall out of the first round because of that diluted substance, test that he had, I think Zach Baun's a perfect fit here for Tennessee. He has the ability to get after the passer. He's very good against the run as well. I watch him a decent amount because he went to my alma mater. For me, I think Zach Baun makes perfect sense here for the Titans to address some of their defensive issues with. So,
Ben, you on board with that?
No, I'm thinking, this is, again, a little bit of a sleeper pick. One of my sleepers was Jalen Johnson, the cornerback from Utah. I think they're going to go the corner here. I'll go with Johnson. Maybe the best player available, maybe not, but not a definitive need, but I think they go with Johnson there.
All right. And Ben, Packers got very close last year until they ran into that juggernaut there by the Bay. They need linebackers, but all linebackers are off the board here. I think they go wide receiver. I'm liking Jalen Reagor from TCU. What do you say, Ben?
Great minds. Yeah, I like the same. Well, best receiver, I think, left at this point. Green Bay always seems to need a wide receiver. Supposedly ran like a 4.25 in some virtual pro day or something. But, it's still a pretty good receiver draft, but I think Reagor's the guy. Not the biggest guy in the world with a 5'11", but if he shows that speed on the field, Aaron Rodgers will be happy.
Can't coach that speed. Ben, what do you say? Scott, what do you say here? Jalen Reagor?
No, but I do have a wide receiver. I got them taking T. Higgins out of Clemson. I'm a huge Higgins guy. I'm not really sure why there have been some rumors about him falling out of the first round, which I have noticed in some of the betting markets. I really like him. I just watched him play over the course of college, and I know that the ACC was very underwhelming to say the least. So his level of competition wasn't exactly the greatest, and he also was on the second best team in the entire league, just based on the fact that Clemson was a runner-up. I was a huge Higgins guy. Every time I watched him play, I thought he was phenomenal. And he's one of my favorite receivers in the entire class. I think it makes perfect sense to pair him up with Rodgers, see what happens, throw him on the outside. I got Higgins. I think Reagor's a good pick also, but I personally like Higgins a little bit more.
Okay. And speaking of runners-up, how about the runner-up in the Super Bowl, the San Francisco 49ers? They did a great job for 3.5 quarters, but I think we all know how that ended up. They've got a couple needs here we talked about earlier. Scott, who do you feel like what direction do they go here?
Well, I said before, I think there's a 95% chance they trade this pick. I think they need to trade down. It's a no-brainer to trade down. They have no picks in the second, third, and fourth round combined. I think they have to trade down. But assuming that they're going to actually keep the pick, I think they need to take a wide receiver. And even though I think there is a chance they could take Ayuk out of Arizona State, I think there is some injury concern there as he is coming in off of a decently serious surgery. I think they're going to take Reagor out of TCU, a pick later than all of you said. I think they're going to trade the pick. I think there's no chance they actually make this pick. But I think they definitely need a receiver. And I think that if Ayuk had no injury issues, they would go with him. But since he has injury issues, I think that they would take Rieger here.
All right, Ben. I know we have Rieger off the board. How do you think the Niners go here?
Well, I think if San Francisco makes this pick, I think they go interior offensive lineman. Cesar Ruiz from Michigan, right tackle, can play inside as well. A solid pick. And again, if San Francisco keeps that pick, I think that's where they need some help at, is the interior offensive line.
Ben, it's like you've been looking over my shoulder for the last couple picks. I have Cesar Ruiz there as well from Michigan. And moving on to the 32nd pick, it is your world champion, Kansas City Chiefs. Kansas City Chiefs pretty well set on offense. Of course, you can always use some big uglies there to play the line, but I don't think that's the direction they're going to go. They had some issues at linebacker the entire season, and now they've lost Fuller at cornerback, where they were not a strong squad to start with. Personally, being the Chiefs fan here, I think they go corner. I like Damon Arnett out of Ohio State as a cornerback. Ben, what do you say about my Kansas City Chiefs?
Yeah, I go with Patrick Queen there from LSU. I think if he's available, best defensive player available, I think they go there. Yeah, cornerback also a possibility as well, but I'm going to go with Queen.
Well, as a Chiefs fan, I would take Queen here all day, every day. Scott, what say you?
I think they're going to go corner. I still have Fulton on my board, kind of a bit of a surprise drop compared to where some people expect Fulton to go. I think he's going to slide a little bit for some reason, but for me, I think the Chiefs have to take him. Even though they definitely have some issues at linebacker, I think their most glaring concern is at the cornerback spot, and I think Fulton's the best corner left. So for me, I got them taking Fulton.
Okay, very good. And there it is, guys. Just 32 picks, just like that. Tomorrow we'll be doing the second round. No, I'm kidding. Tomorrow we'll be taking a look at some props, and we might. It's possible we may have some special guests that may alter our schedule just a little bit. So we'll see how that goes. It's possible we may have on an NFL player or two this week. So we'll have to keep an eye on that and see how that all shakes out. But we'll definitely be talking NFL Tuesday and Wednesday at least with my friend Scott Reichel. And Ben, I really appreciate you stopping by, man. It was a lot of fun to get your thoughts on the draft. Good minds, and of course, you and I matched up on a lot of picks together. So obviously, you have a very, very good mind for football. And thanks for joining us, Ben. What do you got going over there at Winners and Winers? What are you doing to stay busy here in the downtime?
Yeah, Scott, thanks for having me. Going to work on my third mock draft this afternoon. So I've been following college basketball transfers. We've got stuff over the weekend about NASCAR possibly returning in June. A lot of stuff going on at Winners and Winers. We keep adding more and more stories. And Scott's got his quarantine food. What is that? The food challenge going on.
What is the quarantine eating challenge, Scott? Mm-hmm. Is that the official name?
Something like that. I don't really know what to call it. I just call it the Chestnut versus the World Challenge. It's pretty much everyone who bets betting on Chestnut.
Is there any food you could binge, Ben? What's your most bingeable food?
Probably potato chips, I would guess.
Potato chips? I wonder.
Lay's potato chips.
I wonder how many bags of potato chips is the record. It's you know what, Scott. I don't
know if I want to know the answer to that question.
It's probably something. They're all just incredible numbers.
How much can you eat without drinking though? I guess you have to go to the no salt part, but.
Yeah, and I wonder if they dip their chips in the water like they do with the hot dog buns. Yeah, I don't know. I'd have to see now I'm going to be looking at YouTube for potato chip eating contest. Thanks very much. Very good. Ben, yeah, as always, thanks for joining us. And do check out winnersandwiners.com. Got a lot of great current sports content up there, talking about some of the newer sports that we've now taken an interest in, such as esports and yes, the Major League Eaters. And Scott, what do you got cooking besides doing this fine video here once a day? What else you got cooking over there at Winners and Winers?
As of right now, I know that there has been some. Honestly, I'm kind of just seeing whatever's available, and I'm willing to help out wherever there is. I've mostly just been diving completely into the draft because that's pretty much all people want to talk about for the sake of the next week or so, especially with all the people who are so used to betting on NBA playoffs and NHL and all this other stuff, and now they're betting over-unders and staring at Roger Goodell through a Zoom chat trying to figure out if they're going to make money or not. most of the draft at this point, I've been diving pretty deep into this. We'll get into that tomorrow for the props. But overall, I'm looking forward to one team trading up and blowing up all three of our mock drafts at the same time. And other than that, I'm looking forward to it. Should be a fun week.
You know it's definitely going to happen. There'll definitely be some trades that will render most of what we just talked about for the last hour or so completely moot. So
did you see there was a prop on how many cats people might have in their house?
Yes, I saw cats. I saw people. We'll get into that tomorrow. I love the over 9.5 for people there.
Not cats, no.
No, not cats. Cats was over a half, I believe. I think it was a half. You had whether a prop would break open some champagne or if there would be some beer mentioned. It's kind of tough because some of the prospects being drafted are under the age of 21, so that is definitely something to keep in mind. But we'll get into that tomorrow, I guess, for the recreational props.
All right. Well, that'll be fun. You guys have that to look forward to. As always, thanks for joining us here today at winnersandwhiners.com. You guys hang in there. We say it every day. Stay healthy, stay well, and, of course, stay home. We're going to get through it together. We're going to have sports back before you know it. For myself, for Scott Steen, for Scott Reichel, for Ben the Pen, Ben Hayes over there at Winners and Whiners, we thank all you guys for stopping by. Definitely check us out tomorrow. We're going to be doing draft. Wall-to-wall draft this week, man. It's all about the NFL. Check out Scott and I tomorrow as we'll be discussing some of our favorite prop plays from the NFL draft. Till then, you guys take care, and we'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye. Clear.